Let's jump into waiver wired and start with the quarterbacks here, guys. Now, listen, this is, I would think, one of two bye-mageddons, I would call it. We have not had a bye like this so far, Matthew.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's a bad one. Take a look at the starting quarterbacks on the bye for Week 12, starting with both Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Obviously, certified starters, and then even Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, for those of you in 2 quarterback leagues or using them as a backup.
Cousins been, borderline top 12. People have definitely used him as a starter in 1 quarterback leagues, and, Burrow and Allen. If there's one positive here, it's at least Burrow can't have another 300-yard, 3-touchdown game and a loss. At least he can't lose. He gets a break from losing. It's right. So Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Saints, Jets, Jaguars are all on a bye this week. So it's a lot of fantasy-relevant players. You see the notable quarterbacks there on your screen. So one guy that's available and shouldn't be is Bo Nix. I don't know how long we continue to talk about Bo Nix, but our rule here at the league, and I get it. I know people are screaming at their screen or they're listening to this like, not in my league.
Right.
I get it. I hear you. Not in any of my leagues either. But all we can go off is what Yahoo data shows us, and according to Yahoo, Bo Nix is still available in 51% of leagues. He's clearly still available in some leagues. He should be 100% rostered, Connor. He's not. Again, you're talking to me, right? There's no bigger Jane Daniels homer than me. I mean, look at 5 behind me here. I have faith in 5, and yet I'm making this argument, Jay Croucher, that the offensive rookie of the year, I don't think that is a done deal. I think Bo Nix has made this a conversation. I still think Jane Daniels is the betting favorite. He should be the favorite, but it's a conversation because of how well Bo Nix has played.
Yeah, since the first month of the season, Bo Nix has been better than Jane Daniels. Now, that first month was incredible from Jane Daniels, and it's not like he's been bad since then, but Nix has gone to another level. Since week 5, we'll talk about the fantasy implications, and I think Bo Nix is arguably a better fantasy quarterback than a real-life one because of the added rushing value. But since week 5, Bo Nix, by PFF grade, is the number 6 quarterback in the NFL, right behind Lamar Jackson. And the thing is, too, is that he hasn't done this just entirely against bad defenses. He's able to put the Broncos in position against the Chiefs to kick a 35 field goal or whatever to win the game. He's just been very consistent. He just looks like a much more comfortable quarterback, Connor.
He really does. He's settling into the offense. He's getting the ball out, but he's also making some plays on some more extended plays, and that's where his athleticism comes into play. We've seen a much better production from Courtland Sutton lately as well, which has been really huge. And the schedule kind of makes you buy in that he can keep this run going right now when they have the Raiders, the Browns, a bye, and the Colts. These are favorable matchups for him, Matthew, where you think, okay, maybe not the 4-touchdown performance against the Falcons where it looked like the Broncos were dominant, but definitely a starting quarterback in fantasy right now.
There's a floor there because of the rushing. He's really taking the Sean Payton offense of these short passes and yards after the catch is really taking off, and then they're not scared to throw it deep as well. They've taken some deep shots to Courtland Sutton and some of the other guys there as well. And it's sort of weird, right? I mean, you're we like Marvin Mims, but he hasn't really broken out in a big way, like little Jordan Humphrey. There's not a lot of big name guys.
Vele's gotten a lot of looks recently.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a ton, but you're not wow, the Broncos just completely loaded. And so Bo Nix is doing it with his legs, with his arm. 11 total touchdowns over the last 4 games, including the 1 receiving touchdown, but 9 passing. He also runs in for 1. Since week 5, I just want to show you this. Over the last 4 weeks, look at this on your screen. Over the last 4 weeks, Bo Nix is the 4th best quarterback in fantasy football, right? Since week 5, he's QB4. He's averaging more fantasy points per game than Brock Purdy, Justin Herbert, than Josh Allen. He's 0.8 points less than Lamar Jackson. So I want to do a quick kind of exercise here with you guys. And we don't have to get into a whole discussion, but on my old show, back in the day, way back in the day, any old 06, 0-0 fans know this. We used to do a thing, I invented this, whatever, but called the name game. Not to brag about that, but my point is I'm bringing that because I want to do it again, right? And so if anything, I'm ripping myself off. And so a lot of other shows have done a version of this as well since then. I don't think my old show continues to do this. I haven't listened. Shout out to my friends over at Fantasy Focus. I haven't listened recently, so I don't think they're still doing this. If they are, apologies. But regardless, anyway, so we used to do this thing called the name game. So just for the rest of the season, who would you rather have, Bo Nix? And I'm going to read a couple of Would you rather have Bo Nix or Patrick Mahomes? Mahomes is at Carolina, Vegas, Chargers at Cleveland. You just write up Bo Nix or Patrick Mahomes the rest of the season.
Bo Nix, don't think it's all that close.
Right, Mahomes just hasn't been a starting quarterback in fantasy all year, where Bo Nix has had a long stretch of being that.
Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels. Cowboys, Titans by New Orleans for the Commanders.
I'm still going to roll with Jaden Daniels. Hopefully this extra rest got him healthy, and the rushing upside with him is crazy. But it's crazy that it's this close.
I agree. We agree. Nix over Mahomes, Daniels over Nix. All right. Bo Nix or Justin Herbert plays the Ravens, the Falcons, the Chiefs, the Bucks.
I love the schedule for Herbert. It's Herbert. 3 of those 4 he's going to have massive games.
I think per game it might be neck and neck, but the fact that Herbert's already had his bye, and that's I think the key thing here is that Herbert has an extra game than Nix, so I would take Herbert.
I agree. Bo Nix or Brock Purdy?
Maybe the toughest one. Looking at
Purdy,
this.
here's what San Francisco plays: at Green Bay, at Buffalo, home to Chicago, home to the Rams. I'll say Bo Nix.
I'll say Bo Nix. I don't love that run of Purdy having Buffalo and Chicago back-to-back.
I would take Purdy again just because of the extra game. They've already had their bye, but per game I think Nix will be better.
That's fair. And then Bo Nix or Sam Darnold. Vikings play at Chicago, home to Arizona, home to the Falcons, home to Chicago. So 3 straight home games after a road game at Chicago this week, which is a tough one. Tough place to play.
Take Bo Nix.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
Chicago's pass defense, for all their problems, that hasn't been one.
But that just to give you, those were all very legitimate, real starting quarterbacks that have been, top 12 or better this year. So again, it's a way of saying Bo Nix needs to be rostered in 100% of leagues. I don't know how he's not. He's a legit top 10, viably, potentially top 5 quarterback over the next month here. And most importantly, the other thing is that, again, for leagues that haven't had their trade deadline, I know a lot have, but some haven't, that if I had Bo Nix and I'm trying to fortify in a different area, grab Bo Nix and trade your, quote, big name quarterback for some help somewhere else. That's something else to think about here. But again, just Bo Nix, not a fluke, not a fluke. This is somebody who started 50 games in college, so it's not surprising that he's adapted to the pro game as well this quickly.
That was the big selling point with him, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix, guys that have that 5 years of college experience. Ironically, Penix is in a situation where he's not playing right away. Very strange. But for the other two, that's been the payoff for them. And no coincidence, they are in a race now for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
Would you put any money down on Nix, or do you think it's still going to be Daniels?
I think it's still going to be Daniels, but I mean, plus 300. I think plus 300 is about fair. Plus 300 means a 25% chance. The thing that makes me skew to Daniels is that he still gets to play the Cowboys, Titans, Saints. He has these winnable games. Even one of his harder games is the Falcons at home. That's not a scary game anymore. Certainly it's the defense. So I think Daniels is the better quarterback. I think his team is going to have the better record. The Broncos are still a coin flip to make the playoffs. The Commanders are 7-4 with an easy schedule. So I think it'll be Daniels, but I think 75% Daniels, 25% Nix. I think that's about right.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say is that, awards often are narrative driven. Yeah. And so just Jaden Daniels, he's the sexier player. He's in the bigger market, East Coast. I do think those things, rightfully or wrongfully, do play into it as well. So I agree with you there. But credit to Bo Nix, because he's made it a conversation where a couple weeks ago, it was just it's going to be Jaden Daniels.
Felt off the board.
I think as well, in a close race, to your point, there is an element of Rookie of the Year where there's a little bit of projecting forward. And if it's neck and neck, I think most people think that Jaden Daniels is going to be the better quarterback. And I think that might be a tiebreak, fairly or not. But look, with Bo Nix, with the fantasy value, if you don't need him in week 14 when he has his bye, then I would be trying to trade Bo Nix for Patrick Mahomes, because I think most people would actually do that trade.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Our next quarterback here, guys, Anthony Richardson is available in 52% of leagues. He has that tough Detroit defense, but might not matter, Matthew, because Richardson just gets so much equity in the red zone as a rusher, as we saw the 2 touchdowns on the ground against the Jets.
Yeah, he's had multiple goal line rushes in 3 of his past 4 completed games. It's worth noting that the Lions, because they just dominate so much, there's some junk time. They actually give up 6.5 yards per carry to quarterbacks this season. That's 3rd most. So you can run on the Lions, which I suspect Richardson will do as well. Do you love this schedule? Because he's home to the Lions, then he's at New England, then they have a bye, then they're at Denver. So it's a very tough schedule for the Colts moving forward. But I agree with you. The rushing gives at least a floor to Anthony Richardson. And it does seem like, we talked about this the other night on football night. It does feel like he's turned a corner, not the corner, but he's at least turned a corner. Like you feel better. You feel better about Richardson after the Jets game than you did before it.
Yeah. So interested for your thoughts on this, Connor, about how much of a corner he's turned, because on one hand, it's one game against a suspect defense. Yeah. On the other hand, he showed everything that you would want. He had a over 7% completion percentage over expected, best completion percentage in a game in his career. So do you think that he
ran with authority, hit downs in stride,
Well, that's what mattered to me in this game, is that he used the throwing to earn himself the red zone runs. Yeah. And he looked confident, accurate. He spread the ball around to Josh Downs, to Alec Pierce, even the tight ends, and Michael Pittman a little bit, although that connection's still not there. I'm in. I know the schedule is really hard, but I thought the reset helped him mechanically as a thrower.
Yep. I would say, my approach would be that, okay, so what he had done to that point on one hand, and then on the other hand, what preseason expectations were for him, and I would move 60% towards the preseason expectations for him because that game was so promising.
Yeah. I agree. Our next quarterback
rest of the season, Anthony Richardson or Bo Nix.
That's neck and neck. I would say Bo Nix the higher floor, Richardson the highest ceiling.
I think I'd take the ceiling of Richardson.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that assessment. Absolutely. Depends on what you need. Nix is the floor play, Richardson's the ceiling
I'm
play.
always a home run hitter with these type of things, and so I'd take Richardson.
Yeah. All right, Drake Maye is our next quarterback. He's 86% available. Another rookie on our list here, Jay. Upcoming schedule, he's got the Dolphins, the Colts, good matchup, the bye before Arizona. Drake Maye doesn't have a lot around him, but man, he is making the absolute most out of it in these starts.
Yep, so just the rushing provides such added value, and also the fact that it's not always pretty and they're losing games, but just his ability to compile volume numbers is very impressive. Bryce Young couldn't do this last year. He couldn't put up these 280 passing yard games that Maye is. Drake Maye, I think next year, is he going to be a top 8 fantasy quarterback because of the rushing value?
Totally depends what they can or can't do in the offseason.
They just add one kind of viable receiver, take a receiver in the first round, or get a vet. The Patriots, as you look at their schedule going forward, at the Dolphins, home Colts, they have the bye. At Cardinals, these aren't terrifying matchups. The last 3 are tougher. At the Bills, home Chargers, home Bills. But I think that he is going to be a viable QB1 in these favorable matchups against Miami, Indy, and Arizona.
And by the way, there's a theme here, right? We talk about this with Nix. We talk about this with Richardson. We'll talk about this with Drake Maye. In his 6 starts, he's averaging over 40 rushing yards a game. Again, that rushing floor just gives you, it gives you confidence that he can get there and be viable fantasy-wise.
Yep. And one of the tougher matchups is Week 18 against the Bills, which probably doesn't matter.
Throw it out the door, or the window, yeah. All right, a guy that doesn't really give you much rushing production, Matthew, but he just throws the hell out of the football, Jameis Winston. 88% available. He's got the Steelers on Thursday Night Football, the short week, and then this is the tough part with Matthew. You love the volume with Winston.
Oh, yeah.
But, man, the schedule, Steelers short week, Broncos on primetime. That defense is awesome. Steelers again and Chiefs. This is kind of murderer's row.
It's a little bit tough. Yeah, Steelers, Broncos, Steelers again, Chiefs, as you mentioned. It's a very tough schedule, but he is averaging 44 pass attempts a game. You mentioned the volume, Connor. Over 40 attempts in all 3 starts. He's had at least 23 fantasy points in 2 of the last 3, and I think that while you wouldn't feel good about the Browns' prospects of winning these games, and certainly, you're going to get the full Jameis experience, in some way, I think you could make an argument that the fact that he's going against good defense is actually helpful. And by that I mean, there's probably going to be a pick 6 or 2. Stay tuned, obviously, for your free wings from Applebee's. But there's probably going to be a pick 6 or 2, which, by the way, when you have those defensive touchdowns, as we'll talk about from last night's game, that speeds up the game, and it just means you're chucking. It'll be junk time production, but it all counts the same. And so there's a reason why Winston, I think if he had a better schedule, he'd be higher up on our list. But again, with 6 teams on a bye, and you may not have Bo Nix, Anthony Richardson, or Drake Maye available in your league. So Winston comes in here at 4. He threw for almost 400 yards against the Saints. Yeah. He's just going to chuck it. He doesn't run that much. And so, Nick Chubb has yet to sort of really get going. And given how good the Steelers especially are against the run, that's the only way they're going to be able to move the ball. We have seen some teams move the ball through the air against Pittsburgh.
Yep. I think the key is that they can't run the ball. It's been all season they haven't been able to run the ball with that offensive line, with Chubb still getting back up to speed. And now they're playing all these teams that have great run defenses. In Pittsburgh, ×2 in the next month, the Broncos, the Chiefs quietly becoming more of a pass funnel defense too. So Jameis, for his flaws, you think you make the point. The bad elements of Jameis aren't necessarily bad for fantasy because it just means he gets the ball back quicker.
Yeah. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.